All right, welcome everybody to Wikireadia, where we fumble through Wikipedia down the rabbit hole, you could say, in an attempt to learn a thing or two. It's not always guaranteed, not gonna lie, but we'll do our best. I think today we'll give it a shot with a random article. So let's see where we start. Oh, Allendale, Missouri. We're lucky today. This could be good. It's a town in eastern Worth County in Missouri, United States. Population was 53, the 2010 census, when the time was a town. At which time it was a town. Allendale was platted in 1855 by Joel and William Allen and named for them. I don't know what platted means. We'll get that one down there. It was initially named Allenville, but was later changed to avoid mailing confusion with another town named Allenville. Post office was called Allendale. It's been in operation since 1861. I find it interesting that post office seems to be the defining feature. Once your town has a post office, you've pretty much made it as far as the town goes. Yeah, I don't know. Medium household income, arts and culture. According to the tradition, on every 4th of July, men from the local community get together and cook a breakfast for everyone to enjoy. That is interesting. I don't know if it's not a town. I don't understand. At which time it's a town is a little strange. Population of 53. I feel like also that this town should be flattered to be in Wikipedia with a population of 53. 2020 population of 48. It's on the decline, and that is not good. Zip code and area code. I didn't realize that area codes. I guess I did. No, I'm thinking postal codes, the zip codes in the States. Anyways, we're going to look at Worth County because I am a little curious as a Canadian reading about these American places, how the county system works. But just as an aside, that plat, I think that was platted. Just curious. In the United States, a plat or plan, I feel like that's a simple enough way to explain it, is a cadastral map. Oh my God. We're getting there. Drawn to scale, showing division of a piece of land. United States General Land Office surveyors drafted township plats of public land surveys to show the distance and bearing between sections, corners, and sometimes including topographic or vegetation information. City, town, or village plats show subdivisions broken into blocks with streets and alleys. Further refinement often splits blocks into individual lots, usually for the purpose of selling the described lots. This has become known as subdivision, or a subdivision. After the filing with plat, legal descriptions can refer to block and lot numbers rather than portions of sections. Interesting. In gardening history, in both varieties of English and in French, a plat means a section or formal parterre, which is a part of a formal garden, level substrate, planted only with grass and perhaps a central feature, such as a statue. Interesting. So, got all these different plats of different places. But a cadastral map, I don't know what that means. Cadastre. A cadastral map is a map that shows the boundaries and ownership of land parcels. Some cadastral maps shows additional details such as survey district names, unique identifying numbers of parcels, and for parcels, certificates of title numbers, positions of existing structures, sections or lot numbers in the respective areas, adjoining and adjacent street names, selected boundary dimensions, and references to prior maps. Oh, man. Oxford comma. The lack of Oxford commas always drives me nuts. Maybe someday Wikipedia will take me there, understand why that is so frustrating, I guess. But okay, so it's just a map. A comprehensive recording of real estate or real property meters and boundaries. So specifically to do with real estate and subdivided lands, that's subdivision. Now, back to Worth County. And county is kind of where I want to end up. But Worth County is located in the northwestern portion of the U.S. state of Missouri. 2020 census, the population of 1973, 48 of which are in Allendale. It's the smallest county in the state in population and, excluding the independent city of St. Louis, the smallest in total area. Its county seat is Grant City. The county was organized in 1861 and named for General William J. Worth, who served in the Mexican-American War. It's the youngest county in the state. Interesting, 1861, youngest in the state. Of course. Interesting. Politics. Let's not get into that. Communities, unincorporated communities. Interesting. So county seat. I'm kind of curious what that is, but you know what? I'm sure the next page, the county page, will get me there. Okay, so I'm in Canada. We don't have counties. Um, we have municipalities. I'm guessing that's probably the closest thing that it would have. I don't know much about counties in the United States, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit. But I do know what I see U.S. elections. Basically, counties decide elections and things like that in some ways. But let's learn. That's what we're here for. A county in the United States is an administrative or political subdivision of a state that consists of a geographic region with specific boundaries and usually some level of governmental authority. The term county is used in 48 states, while Louisiana and Alaska have functionally equivalent subdivisions called parishes in Louisiana and boroughs in Alaska, respectively. That is very odd, but okay. And I imagine the parish, that really sounds like a religious, like the church, the parish, things like that, in my experience. I'm assuming that's where that comes from. Boroughs makes me think of cities, honestly, like New York has boroughs, but just divisions either way. So the specific government powers of counties vary widely between the states, with many providing some level of services to civil townships, municipalities, which they have as well, and unincorporated areas. Certain municipalities are in multiple counties. New York City is uniquely partitioned into 5 counties, referred to as the city government level as boroughs. There we go. Boroughs. Some municipalities, I want to look up New York. I'm always interested in the history of New York, but I don't think we're going to get there on this trip. Some municipalities have consolidated with their county governments to form consolidated city counties, or have been legally separated from counties altogether to form independent cities. Conversely, those counties in Connecticut, Rhode Island, 8 of Massachusetts' 14 counties, and Alaska's unorganized borough have no government power, existing only as geographic distinctions. The lack of consistency is a little frustrating. I felt like I was going to learn something about counties. I think that the likelihood of that is dwindling rapidly. So, number of counties per state ranges from the 3 counties of Delaware, 3 counties, crazy, to the 254 counties of Texas. Oh, I like that grid system. I'm just curious. I'm sure that the Delaware's smaller in population than Texas. Obviously, it's smaller in area, but is it 100 times smaller? Like, do those counties in Texas, are they comparable population-wise to those in Delaware? It just says they vary widely. In 2017, according to the Census Bureau, more than half the U.S. population is concentrated in just 143 of more than 3,000 counties, or just 4.6%. The 5 largest in order population by are Los Angeles, California, Cook County, Illinois, Harris County, Texas, Maricopa County, Arizona, and San Diego County, California. Okay, so, I mean, no shock there. A common stat for Canadian kind of geography and demographics are just how concentrated our population is. You're just out of the U.S. border. It's a huge amount of space in Canada, but a very small amount of space that has, like, you know, this is more than half. It's like 90% of Canadian citizens are within 50 kilometers, I think, 50 miles maybe of the U.S. border. So Census Bureau uses county equivalent to describe places that are comparable to counties, but called by different names, such as Louisiana parishes and organized boroughs of Alaska, redundantly repeated there. Independent cities and the District of Columbia are equivalent to counties for administrative purposes. The Alaska's unorganized borough is further divided into 11 census areas that are statistically equivalent to counties. In 2024, 2 years from now, the U.S. Census Bureau will begin to use Connecticut's Council of Governments for county equivalent statistical purposes. I wonder who sets the dates. In 2 years, we're going to start this. And it could have been years ago that was even determined. Territories of the United States do not have counties. Instead, the United States Census Bureau also divides them into county equivalents. The U.S. County Bureau counts American Samoa's districts and atolls as county equivalents, and American Samoa locally has places called counties, but these entities are considered minor civil divisions, not true counties, by the U.S. Census Bureau. In 2020, there are currently 3,143 counties and equivalents in the 50 states and the District of Columbia. Okay, we saw some other video lately, 50 states and the District of Columbia. I think there's a lot of Canadians that are under the impression that there are really 51 states. But apparently it's 50, and then Washington, D.C., which, sure, it's not a state, but it feels like a state. I feel like the way it's discussed sometimes makes us Canadians think of it as a state. I feel like you just don't want to put that extra star. 50 stars looks good. But I'm sure, I think that's just a cause of confusion for some Canadians. If the 100 county equivalents in the United Territories are counted, then obviously you get 3,243. Country with the largest population, Los Angeles, and the country with the largest land area, San Bernardino, border each other in Southern California. However, 11 boroughs in Alaska are larger in area than San Bernardino County. Well, no surprise there. Alaska is absolutely ginormous. So, history. Here's the good stuff. Unsurprisingly, the origin of the American counties are in the counties of England. English, and after 1707, British colonists brought to their colonies in North America a political subdivision that they already used in the British metropole, the counties. Counties were among the earliest units of local government established in the 13 colonies that would become the United States. Virginia created the first counties in order to ease the administrative workload on Jamestown. The House of Burgesses divided the colony first into 4 incorporations in 1617 and finally into 8 shires. Shires, I like it. Of Virginia. Okay. Or counties. In 1634, James City, Henrico, Charles City, Charles River. Oh boy. Warasquayoke, Accomack, Elizabeth City, and Warwick River. America's oldest intact county court records can be found at Eastville, Virginia, in Northampton, originally Accomack County, dating to 1632. That's pretty far back there. And Maryland established its first county, St. Mary's, in 1637. Massachusetts followed in 1643. Pennsylvania and New York delegated significant power and responsibility from the colony government to county governments, and thereby established a pattern for most of the United States, although counties remain relatively weak in New England. New England may be obvious to the Americans, but New England specifically referring to Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. I don't know if there's any relevant definition of what makes New England a thing. When I think of New England, honestly, I think of woodworking and the styles that are kind of found common to those places. But other than just specific naming and maybe like-minded people, I don't know if there's actually any other distinction. So when independence came, the framers of the Constitution left the matter to the states. Subsequently, state constitutions conceptualized county governments as arms of the state. Louisiana instead adopted the local division called parishes that dated back to both the Spanish colonial and French colonial periods when the land was dominated by the Catholic Church. There you go, parishes from the church. In the 20th century, the role of local government strengthened, and counties began providing more services, acquiring home rule and county commissions to pass local ordinances pertaining to the unincorporated areas. In 1955, delegates to the Alaska Constitutional Convention wanted to avoid the traditional county system and adopted their own unique model with different types of boroughs varying in power and duties. Like, if it's the same thing, just called by a different name, is it really different? Maybe there's different powers altogether. Who am I to say? In some states, these powers are partly or mostly devolved into counties' smaller divisions, usually called townships. Though in New York, New England, and Wisconsin, they are called towns. Okay, that's great. The county may or may not be able to override its townships on certain matters, depending on state law. The newest county in the United States is the city and county of Broomfield, Colorado, established in 2001 as a consolidated city-county. Previously part of 4 counties. The newest county equivalents are the Alaskan census area of Chugach and Copper River, both established in 2019, very recent, and Alaskan boroughs of Petersburg, established in 2013, Wrangell, established in 2018, and Skagway, established in 2008, 2007. Okay, so my understanding largely is that there's almost no consistency. Counties can be cities. They can be geographical boundaries. They can be areas with large variance in population. And even once those areas are defined, the amount of power or lack of power that they have is largely variable throughout the country. I don't know. That seems pretty crazy. I think that from an outsider's point of view, the independence of the states is a good thing, I suppose. But the inconsistency is a little bit mind-boggling sometimes. It's good that people can have their own say, but as a united country, I kind of expect things to be a little closer than they are, or at least than I found them to be often. But yeah, so you get all these city, counties, and county equivalents. Goes through lots of different things. Organization and scope of power, minimal scope. Yeah, that is interesting. With all the different statistics and the number of counties. Sure. Stats, lots of stats. I'm not going to go through all the stats here. But then, so you go American Samoa and how they're kind of divided. Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, U.S. minor outlying islands, and the Virgin Islands. Is this population? It is. U.S. minor outlying islands. There's a whole bunch of islands, and only 160 people that live on them. The United States minor outlying islands is a statistical designation by the International Organization of Standardizations, or ISO 3166-1 code. The entry code, okay, sure, the minor outlying islands and groups of islands consist of 8 United States insular areas in the Pacific Ocean. Baker's Island, Howland Island, Jarvis Island, Johnston Atoll. I think I've heard of Johnston Atoll. I'm intrigued. Kingman Reef, Midway Atoll. Yeah, okay. Palmyra Atoll and Wake Island. And one in the Caribbean Sea, Navassa Island. Look at all these beauties. Okay, insular areas. In the law, United States insular area is a U.S. associated jurisdiction that is not part of the 50 states. Includes 14 U.S. territories administered in U.S. sovereignty. Okay. So in 1936, a colonization program began to settle Americans on Baker, Howland, and Jarvis, but all 3 islands were evacuated in 1942 as a result of World War II. Okay. Where are these places? Southwest of Honolulu. 3,000 kilometers southwest of Honolulu. Halfway between Hawaii and Australia. Okay, there you go. 3,000 kilometers southwest. And I imagine halfway between Hawaii and the Cook Islands. Yeah, so they're way in the middle of nowhere. Very, very separate. And closer to Japan, I guess. So there's that World War II connection. Yeah, so from 1974 to 1986, 5 of the islands, being Baker, Howland, Jarvis, Palmyra Atoll, and Kingman Reef, were grouped under the term United States Miscellaneous Pacific Islands, with the ISO 3166 code PU. The code of Midway Atoll was MI, Johnston Atoll was JT, and the code of Wake Island was WK. Prior to 1986, Navassa Island, along with several small islands of the Caribbean Sea that are no longer under U.S. sovereignty, were grouped under the United States Miscellaneous Caribbean Islands with FIPS country code BQ. Oh man, so many codes. Yeah, crazy. So as an overview, except for the Palmyra Atoll, which we'll get into, all these islands are unincorporated, unorganized territories in the United States. Currently, none of the islands have any permanent residents, although military personnel, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service personnel, and temporary station scientific and research staff are posted to some of the islands. The 2000 census counted 315 people on Johnston Atoll and 1 person on Wake Atoll. 1 person? Oh man, gotta get to that one. Territory of Palmyra Atoll is an incorporated territory separated in 1959 from the rest of the former incorporated territory of Hawaii when Hawaii became a state. So they just didn't want to be a state, so they became a territory instead when Hawaii became a state. There's been no modern indigenous population except at the 1940 census. And during the late 2010s, the U.S. military began reinvesting in airfield and other assets on Wake Island. Okay. The islands are grouped together as statistical convenience and are not administered collectively nor do they share a single cultural or political history beyond being uninhabited islands under the sovereignty of the United States. They're all outside of the customs territory of the United States and have no customs duties. Except for the Midway Atoll, the Pacific Islands are surrounded by large, exclusive economic zones and are within the bounds of the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. Holy moly. Internet country code top-level domain UM has historically been assigned to the islands. However, the .um was retired in 2007. Big shocker with almost no people living there. So airports, that is not shocking. Okay, so these atolls. Currently administered, so Johnson Atoll, United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Interesting. What do we got here? Johnston Island. That's funny. This island looks a lot like a boat, almost. It's just an island with defined borders or defined boundaries and a runway running down the middle of it. Not big. Where's that scale? There you go. 3 kilometers. This is like 3 kilometers long, which is pretty long as a straight line, but then the reef here kind of blocking things out, and a whole bunch of other little teeny tiny islands surrounding it. So for nearly 70 years, the isolated atoll was under the control of the U.S. military, and during that time was variously used as a naval refueling depot, an airbase, testing site for nuclear and biological weapons, a secret missile base, and the site for storage and disposal of chemical weapons and Agent Orange. That's just wonderful. Those activities left the area environmentally contaminated, and monitoring continues. Well, that's just terrible. Johnston Atoll, there you go. It's a red speck. Not that you can actually see this. A red speck in the middle. Oh, my red speck disappeared. Let's see, where are we? We're like here. Not even speck worthy. Oh man. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but history. National Wildlife Refuge since 1926. Military control up to 2004. Sand Island Seaplane Base. Airfield Coast Guard mission. Nuclear weapon test site 58 to 63. Successes and failures. Anti-satellite mission. Oh, Agent Orange stowage. Chemical weapons storage. Biological warfare test site. Man, this place got just decimated. It's really a shame to even think of. There's the aerial approach. Not the best picture. This little island in the middle of the Pacific. Basically just being destroyed by the government over and over and over. There you go. Leaking Agent Orange bottles being disposed on the Johnston Atoll. This is about 1973. So there you go. Millions and millions of bottles. Chemical agent disposal system. That's great. Just, oh man, this is sad. It's frustrating to even read. Okay. There you go. We're going to move on. Just get mad reading about the Johnston Atoll. I'm sure the Midway Atoll has a much better history. It has to. Oh, sounds so good so far. The Midway Atoll, or the Midway Islands in Hawaiian, translates to the backbone of heaven, or the loud din of birds, is a 6.2 kilometer squared atoll in the North Pacific Ocean. Midway Atoll is an insular area. Yep, no problem. From 1941 to 1983, it was home to the Naval Air Facility, Midway Island, which played a crucial role in the Battle of Midway. June 4th to 6th, 1942. Aircraft based at the then-named Henderson Field on Eastern Island joined with the United States Navy ships and planes in an attack on a Japanese battle group that sank 4 carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, and defended the atoll from invasion. Battle was a critical Allied victory and a major turning point on the Pacific campaign of World War II. I'm not going to lie, as a Canadian, I don't feel like I know a lot about the Pacific campaign of the World War II. I would be interested in going into it. I'm sure we'll get into World Wars at some point. I'm not going to delve into different military campaigns, World War II, but I am curious. I'm not going to lie. So location, infrastructure. It's got some 20 miles of roads, 32 kilometers, 7 kilometers of 8 kilometers or so pipelines, I should say, and an airfield. As of 2004, though, Henderson Airfield, with its one active runway around 8,000 feet long, has been designated as an emergency diversion airport for aircraft flying under ETOPS rules, extended range twin engine operation performance standards. Although the FWS closed all airport operations on November 22nd, 2004, public access to the island was restored from March 2008. Eastern Island Airstrip is disused airfield that was in use by the U.S. forces during the Battle of Midway, mostly constructed of Marston mat, was built by the United Navy Seabees construction battalions. Interesting. Marston mat, pierced steel planking, standardized perforated steel matting material developed by the United States as the Waterways Experiment Station shortly before the World War II, primarily for rapid construction of temporary runways and landing strips. Fascinating. Cool. Yeah, this makes me think of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan in Canada, where basically Canada being so remote from all the activity going on with World War II, Canada was used as like a training base for everyone. British people, Australians, obviously Canadians, to come over to Canada and safely learn how to fly aircraft. And in that small span of time, there was literally hundreds of airfields built in a really standard kind of triangular pattern throughout Canada. And it was built just incredibly fast. Things like these Marston mats seemed like something that would kind of help with that. But yeah, you can see them being used in these little islands in the Aleutians. Papua New Guinea. Oh, there you go. Repurposed for storage of empty wine bottles. Why not? A huge quantity was left in the Philippines. Repurposed as fencing materials. So, I guess better to reuse than to throw away, but still. Okay. 2 of these left. Maybe we'll wrap it up for the day. Learned a lot about these Central or Northern Pacific, I think they're referred to, islands, as well as a few other things. So that's great. Palmyra Atoll, also referred to as the island. I'm curious what defines an atoll or an island, because I think every single one of these atolls, or atoll, I don't know, maybe I'm saying it wrong the whole time, is also referred to as the island of the same name. It's one of the Northern Line Islands, which I guess is defined on its own. It's a chain of 11 atolls and coral islands in the Central Pacific. It's located almost due south of the Hawaiian Islands, roughly 1/3 of the way between Hawaii and American Samoa. Honestly, I'm thinking of Guam, which is north, I believe. But Samoa is clearly south. North America is about 5,500 kilometers northeast, and New Zealand about the same distance southeast, placing this atoll at the approximate center of the Pacific Ocean that is isolated. The land area is 12 square kilometers, with about 14 kilometers of sea-facing coastline and reef. There's one boat anchorage, known as West Lagoon, accessible from the sea by a narrow artificial channel. Second and northmost of the Line Islands, and one of 3 American islands in the archipelago, along with Jarvis and Kimian Reef. Cool. It has no permanent population, administered as an incorporated unorganized territory, presently the only one of its kind by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services and the U.S. Department of the Interior. I feel like the Department of Interior being responsible for an island that's located like dead center in the Pacific Ocean. Interior doesn't quite fit the bill there, but that's okay. So the territory hosts a variable transient population of 4 to 25 staff and scientists employed by various departments of the U.S. government, Natural Conservancy. So it makes me think of, in Canada, Nova Scotia specifically, there's an island called Sable Island. It is not even close to being as remote as the Palmyra Atoll, but it's very well known for its horses, Sable Island horses, and its storms. The area is pretty remote, and it's mostly just utilized by scientists studying things that you can study out in the middle of the ocean on a little basically moving sandbar. Tons of stories of shipwrecks around there as well, but the horses naturally live there. I don't know if they know exactly when, basically hundreds of years ago, and horses have been thriving there, which is crazy, not just because it's isolated, but because of the weather conditions that this kind of northern Atlantic island faces. These horses seem to thrive, which is wild. Political status. Yeah, so it looks like this one was no act of Congress. Yeah, so following Hawaii statehood, some kind of changes. No permanent residence, though. Interesting. All right, let's move on to Wake Island. I think that was the one with one person in it. Also known as Wake Atoll. So there you go. It's a coral atoll in the Western Pacific Ocean. Coral atoll. No. That's two different things. But an atoll apparently is a ring-shaped island, including a coral rim. Oh boy. That encircles the lagoon partially or completely. So there you go. That's what makes it an atoll. It's that ring. Maybe coral islands or cays on the rim. Atolls are located in the warm tropical or subtropical oceans and seas where corals can grow. And most of the 440 are in the Pacific. In the Micronesia subregion. So 2,416 kilometers east of Guam. Okay, I'm just clearly wrong. It was where Guam is. I don't know where my mind was, and it's west of Honolulu, southeast of Tokyo, and north of Majuro. Ooh, Marshall Islands. The nearest inhabited island is the Utarik Atoll in the Marshall Islands. That's inhabited, eh? Wild. It's one of the most isolated islands in the world. So the nearest inhabited island is 950 kilometers to the southeast. Wow. Took possession in 1899. One of 14 U.S. insular areas administered by the United States Air Force under agreement with the U.S. Department of Interior. How the two U.S. government departments have an agreement with each other. The center of activity on the atoll is the Wake Island Airfield, which is primarily used as a mid-Pacific refueling stop for military aircraft as an emergency landing area. The 3,000-meter runway, or 9,800 foot, is the longest strategic runway in the Pacific Islands. That is long. 10,000 feet is a long runway. I know where we are. There's a runway that is so long. Basically, they often get used as an emergency runway for the space shuttle because it needs that much space or close to that much space. But basically, anything can land on it. South of the runways is the Wake Island Launch Center, a missile launch site. Island has no permanent inhabitants, but approximately 100 people live there at any given time. That is interesting. That's not a small amount of people. I suppose there's oh boy, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. There's a crazy long runway there. Downtown area, in quotations. Let's not fool anyone. And then, there's like an island inside the island. Actually, there's many islands inside the island. So there you go. On December 8th, 1941, within a few hours of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Wake Island being on the opposite side of the international date line. Okay, sure. American forces at Wake Island were attacked by Japanese bombers. This action marked the commencement of the Battle of Wake Island. And on December 11th, 1941, it was the site of the Japanese Empire's first unsuccessful amphibious attack on U.S. territory in the World War II when U.S. Marines, with some U.S. Navy personnel and civilians on the island, repelled an attempted invasion. The island fell to overwhelming Japanese forces 12 days later, and it remained occupied by Japanese forces until it was surrendered to the U.S. in September 1945 at the end of the war. So there you go. They lost it in 41, December 23rd, 1941, and didn't ever get it back. The submerged and emergent lands of Wake Island comprise a unit of the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. It's one of the 9 insular areas. Yep, we've heard lots of that. Interesting stuff. Prehistory, palm trees, Wilkes, this wreck, that wreck, American possession. It's 1899, I think. Yeah, 1898. Under orders of President William McKinley, Commander D. Edward Taussig of the USS Bennington landed on Wake and formally took possession of the island for the United States. After a 21-gun salute, the flag was raised and a brass plate was affixed to the flagstaff with the following inscription: United States of America, William McKinley, President. John D. Long, Secretary of the Navy. Commander Edward D. Taussig, U.S. Navy. Commander, USS Bennington. This 17th day of January 1899 took possession of the atoll known as Wake Island for the United States of America. That seems so crazy to me that was still the case in 1899. I realize that's a long time ago now, comparatively. But just to be able to go land somewhere and say, we own this now, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I suppose it's a lot easier when nobody lives there, and that seems to be the case. So I don't know if that's really possible anymore. I'm pretty sure everything is spoken for at this point. Nobody's finding new land, sadly. Satellites kind of took care of that for us. Yep, Jack Penny's occupation. Learned a little bit about that. Cool. Lots of commemorative and memorial visits. Uh, yeah. A group of POWs visit Wake with their wives and children. The first such group by a group of former Wake Island POWs and their families. Yeah, so that when Japan took control, I guess, all the people who were on there became prisoners of war. So a lot of those people who were there just lived there for 4 years as prisoners of war, I assume, which is no fun. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. When you look at these kind of refilling stations, I'm kind of curious how often they're getting refueled. I mean, aircraft are coming in, but aircraft use a fair bit of fuel too. Ships must be coming by, dropping stuff off, and it's pretty common. Look at it here, the 9,850, 50 feet longer runway on Wake is also available to provide services for military and commercial in-flight emergencies. Although there's only one flight scheduled every other week to transport passenger and cargoes to Wake, approximately 600 aircraft per year use Wake Island aircraft. There's one every other week, and they're landing 600 per year. That's crazy. That's like 2 every day. Was that 30 times more than is planned? That's wild. Clearly, it's being well used, and that location is definitely helping. But, oh man, trouble's brewing. Republic of Marshall Islands has claimed Wake Island, which it calls Enenkio, or New Orthography, or Enenkio in the Old Orthography. In 1973, Marshallese lawmakers meeting in Saipan at the Congress of Micronesia, the legislative body for the Trust of Pacific Islands, asserted that Enenkio always has been the property of the people of the Marshall Islands. Their claim was based on oral legends and song passed down through generations, describing ancient Marshallese voyages to Wake to gather food and a sacred bird's wing bone used in the traditional tattooing ceremonies. In 1990, legislation in the U.S. proposed including Wake Island within the boundaries of the U.S. territory of Guam. In response, Marshallese President Amata Kabua reasserted the nation's claim to Wake, declaring that Enenkio was a site of great importance to the traditional, chiefly rituals of the Marshall Islands. The self-declared Kingdom of Enenkio was also claimed Wake as a separate sovereign nation and has issued passports. The Kingdom of Enenkio is not recognized by any international forum as a sovereign state, nor does any international recognized state recognize it. The Kingdom of Enenkio is characterized as a scam by anti-fraud website Quatloose. I mean, I don't know if Quatloose is reputable or not. As a whole nation just being declared a scam, that's interesting. It sounds like Marshall Islands' claim is maybe a little stronger. In 2000, Robert Moore, who claimed to be the head of state, was prevented by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission from fraudulently issuing bonds for the non-existent nation. And on April 23, 1998, the Marshall Islands government notified all countries with which it has diplomatic ties that the claims of the Kingdom of Enenkio are fraudulent. Big shutdown, Kingdom of Enenkio. Look at that. I'm trying to learn more about Enenkio. I can't even do it. So there you go. Clearly a scam. If Wikipedia doesn't have a page for it, then it must not exist. Of course, that's not true. Ask any high school student, though, and they may say otherwise. Let's see. I think we're almost at the last one. We're going to close it up here with the Utarik Atoll. Now, it's hard to keep track of these things, obviously. I get lost myself sometimes, but I believe that this is the nearest inhabited island, almost 1,000 kilometers away from that last one we were on. And let's see how inhabited it is. We have a population of 300 to 400, not too bad in 2020. That's not bad. It operates the Utrecht Elementary School. North Islands High School serves the community. There's just one high school? Like, you have to take a boat, I assume, all the time? That's pretty crazy. And last, let's just finish with a little history, a little light learning. Historical artifacts have been unearthed on the atoll, which date back to 380 CE, including tools likely used by Micronesian peoples. Its first recorded sightings was by Spanish navigator Alvaro de Saavedra on board the ship Florida. There you go. Clearly Florida means something. On the 29th of December in 1527. along with Rongelap, Alengane, and Tok atolls. They were charted as Islas de las Reyes, Islands of the Three Wise Kings in Spanish, due to the proximity of Epiphany. Oh boy, what's that? Also known as Theophany, as a Christian feast day. Okay, so the day that it was there. Makes sense. Or it was discovered, I should say. Utrecht Atoll was claimed by the Empire of Germany, along with the rest of the Marshall Islands, in 1884. But after World War I, the islands came under the South Seas Mandate, the Empire of Japan. Following World War II, Utrecht came under the control of the United States as part of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. And Utrecht was one of the 4 atolls affected by nuclear fallout from Castle Bravo, the largest of many nuclear weapons tests conducted at Bikini Atoll immediately following World War II. I've heard of Bikini Atoll. Looks pretty rough. Maybe it looked better before the nuclear weapon tests. Research is still being done to ascertain the radiation levels, though many scientists agree that there's no harmful effect from the radiation still present. The island has been part of the Independent Republic of Marshall Islands since 1986. So I think it's nice to see the Marshall Islands getting it back. Kind of a shame, really. Gone to Germany, and then Japan, and then the United States, and now it's back with the Marshall Islands, which is good. I think that's kind of where we want it to be. It sounds, I mean, I don't know. Oh man, I just have to say this flag is fantastic. I just noticed that. Glad I did before I left. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic. Good to have it back in the Marshall Islands. I don't know a lot about the Marshall Islands. Once again, another amazing flag, I should say. But yeah, we learned a lot today. I did anyways. I don't know if you guys did. I don't know I don't even know where we started, to be quite honest. Counties, I guess. Counties, and now look at us in the Marshall Islands and all these atolls in the middle of the Pacific. But that's how it goes on Wikipedia, or Wikireadia, I should say. You never know where you're going to end up. But no matter what, you do know you're going to learn a thing or two. So until next time, we'll see you then.